Hi there, it's JoJo the Thrifty Teacher. I am back with another read aloud. I have my martini glasses in the back because I'm on summer break. Just kidding, I just recorded a haul. I have to tell you that I have not, and this is just water with flavoring in it, like zero sodium squeeze in flavorings. But I have not, and I used to drink probably 4 to 6 Diet Cokes a day. I would take my medication in the morning with it. I'd take my medication at night with it. I had one on the side of my bed. Well, I stopped drinking soda cold turkey in September, and I have this when I'm home. I just put my water in it with these flavors, and then I also during when I'm at school have one of those circle water bottles. If you see TikTok, you know what I'm talking about, and I drink those. And I usually go through 66 ounces of water at work, and then I do another 3 of these at home. So that's 20, 40, 60. So I'm drinking 120 ounces of water a day. And everybody's like, do you feel better? No, it didn't change. It didn't change how I felt, but whatever. All right, let's get into it. I did want to keep reading My Father's Dragon because it just was amazing. So uh, if you have not, I read part of this before, so I want to continue reading it. Uh, yeah, you'll have to go listen to one of my other stories for me to tell you what it's about. Other than a young boy who runs to the wild island to rescue a baby dragon. So it says my father finds the island. So obviously, this is somebody else telling the story. My father hid in the hold for 6 days and nights. Twice he was nearly caught when the ship stopped to take on more cargo. But at last he heard a sailor say the next port would be Cranberry and that they'd be unloading the wheat there. My father knew that the sailors would send him home if they caught him, so he looked in his knapsack and took out a rubber band and the empty grain bag with the label saying Cranberry. At the last moment, my father got inside the bag, knapsack and all, folded the top of the bag inside, and put the rubber band around the top. It didn't look exactly like the other bags, but it was the best he could do. Soon the sailors came to unload. They lowered a big net into the hold and began moving the bags of wheat. Suddenly, one sailor yelled, "Great Scott! This is the queerest bag of wheat I've ever seen. It's all lumpy-like, but the label says it goes to Cranberry." The other sailors looked at the bag too, and my father, who was in the bag, of course, tried even harder to look like a bag of wheat. Then another sailor felt the bag, and he just happened to get hold of my father's elbow. "I know what this is," he said. "This is a bag of dried corn on the cob," he said. And he dumped my father into the big net along with the bags of wheat. Oh, look at him. This all happened in the late afternoon, so late that the merchant in Cranberry who had ordered the wheat didn't count his bags until the next morning. He was a very punctual man and never late for a dinner. The sailors told the captain, and the captain wrote down on a piece of paper that they had delivered 160 bags of wheat and 1 bag of dried corn on the cob. They left the piece of paper for the merchant and sailed away that evening. My father heard later that the merchant spent the whole next day counting and recounting the bags and feeling each one trying to find the bag of dried corn on the cob. He never found it because as soon as it was dark, my father climbed out of the bag, folded it up, and put it back in his knapsack. He walked along the shore to a nice sandy place and lay down to sleep. My father was very hungry when he woke up the next morning. Just as he was looking to see if he had anything left to eat, something hit him on the head. It was a tangerine. He had been sleeping right under a tree full of big, fat tangerines. And then he remembered that this was the island of Tangerina. Tangerine trees grew wild everywhere. My father picked as many as he had room for, which was 31, and started off to find Wild Island. He walked and walked and walked along the shore, looking for the rocks that joined the two islands. He walked all day, and once he met a fisherman and asked him about Wild Island, the fisherman began to shake and couldn't talk for a long while. It scared him that much, just thinking about it. Finally, he said, "Many people have tried to explore Wild Island, but none has come back alive. We think they were eaten by wild animals." This didn't bother my father. He kept walking and slept on the beach again that night. It was beautifully clear the next day, and way down the shore my father could see a long line of rocks leading out into the ocean. And way, way out on the end he could see a tiny patch of green. He quickly ate 7 tangerines and started down the beach. It was almost dark when he came to the rocks, but there, way out in the ocean, was a patch of green. He sat down and rested a while, remembering that the cat had said, "If you can go out to the island at night, because then the wild animals won't see you coming along the rocks, and you can hide when you get there." So my father picked 7 more tangerines, put on his black rubber boots, and waited for dark. It was very black night, and my father could hardly see the rocks ahead of him. Sometimes they were quite high, and sometimes the waves almost covered them, and they were slippery and hard to walk on. Sometimes the rocks were far apart, and my father had to get a running start and leap from one to the next. After a while, he began to hear a rumbling noise. It grew louder and louder as he got nearer to the island. At last, it seemed as if it were right on top of the noise, and he was. He had jumped from a rock onto the back of a small whale who was fast asleep and cuddled up between 2 rocks. The whale was snoring and making more noises than a steam shovel, so it never heard my father say, "Ooh, I didn't know that was you." And it never knew my father had jumped on its back by mistake. For 7 hours, my father climbed and slipped and leapt from rock to rock, but while it was still dark, he finally reached the very last rock and stepped off onto Wild Island. That's cute. The next chapter is My Father Finds the River. This is such a cute book. Let me put that away for now. And then I showed you guys this one last week. Let's read Little Miss Stubborn. That would be me. Just a little bit of it. Little Miss Stubborn was, as you might imagine, extraordinarily stubborn. Once she had her mind made up, there was no one making it. If she decided to go out, she went out, even when it was pouring rain. One Sunday, when it wasn't raining, she decided to take the bus to Mrs. Strong's house. Why? Because she had run out of eggs, and as everybody knows, Miss Strong always had a lot of eggs. As the bus arrived, Mr. Nosy walked by. Being nosy, he couldn't help asking, "Where are you going, Little Miss Stubborn?" "To Mrs. Strong's house," she said. "But this bus doesn't go anywhere near there." But Little Miss Stubborn took the bus anyway. And you won't be surprised to hear it didn't go anywhere near Miss Strong's house. Mr. Nosy. It went to Coldland, a country where it's so cold that everybody had a cold all year round. "What a charming place," she said, shivering and trying to look as if she really planned on coming to Coldland in the first place, which of course she hadn't, as you know. She ran along a path to keep warm. Achoo! Somebody sneezed all of a sudden. It was Mr. Sneeze. "If I were you," he warned, "I wouldn't take achoo that path. It's icy. Achoo!" "I'll take it if I want to," snorted Little Miss Stubborn, and she followed the path. But can you guess what happened? Whoosh! She slipped on the ice. "That was fun," said Little Miss Stubborn. But of course it wasn't. She came to a fork in the path. "I shall go this way," she said, taking the right-hand path. "You're making a big mistake," said a worm, popping his head through the snow. "This way isn't safe." "Don't be silly," cried Little Miss Stubborn, and started off down the path. She should have listened to the worm. What the heck is he doing out in the winter? Before she had gone very far, an avalanche of snowballs fell on top of her. One of the snowballs rolled off the path and rolled down a very steep hill. And inside it, Little Miss Stubborn rolled and rolled down that very steep hill as well. The snowball rolled a very long way, all the way into a different country where it melted. As luck would have it, Little Miss Stubborn found herself outside Mrs. Strong's front door. She was soaked to the skin. "My goodness, you're wet through," said Mr. Strong. "Quick, come in and dry yourself before you catch cold." "I don't catch cold," said Little Miss Stubborn. "Anyway, I've come for some eggs. Out of my way." "That's no way to behave," said Mr. Strong. "Rubbish," snorted Little Miss Stubborn. Still wet through, she marched into Mr. Strong's kitchen. Without a please or thank you, she helped herself to a large bowl of eggs. "You could at least ask," said Mr. Strong. "Achoo!" sneezed Little Miss Stubborn. "I told you you'd catch a cold," said Mr. Strong. "I don't catch colds," said Little Miss Stubborn, and sneezed again. Achoo! Apparently I'm reading the whole thing. She was so hungry by the time that, there and then, she made herself an enormous omelet. It was gigantic. It was so big that it wouldn't even fit on the page. Then she began to eat her enormous, gigantic omelet. And the more she ate, the more worried Mr. Strong became. "You're going to make yourself ill." "Fiddlesticks," snorted Little Miss Stubborn. And because she was who she was, she finished the enormous, gigantic omelet. And there's not much more to add other than you know how extraordinarily little Miss Stubborn is. Stubborn to the very end of this story. There's no resolution. That's interesting. And you know what? That would be really good for the kids to be like, well, what happened next? Did she continue being stubborn? Did she get a tummy ache? Did she stop being stubborn? You could have the kids finish the story like a prediction. Yeah. Anyway, this is JoJo the Thrifty Teacher here with another read of a book. I will continue reading Father's Dragon. And then I wanted to show you guys, if you're teachers, the PBIS Tier 1 handbook. I want to show you that next time or whenever. Like, subscribe, follow. I appreciate all of you who are supporting me. Again, I don't edit anything because I'm just learning and starting and getting used to this. And I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.